Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
For this is what the Sovereign Lord says.
Why do you need prophets to tell people who you are and what you want?
If you can justify everything that the God of the Bible has done, then you can justify any of your behavior.
A lot of this mentality is trickling into what is now mainstream right-wing Christianity.
I am capable of empathy greater than this God of the Bible.
This is a Bible that they tell kids. This is the good Lord. This is the good book. He is fantasizing about murder, mass murder.
Head over to sacrilegiousdiscourse.com right now to find out how to leave us a review or support us on Patreon.
Hey there, sinners and saints. It's your favorite Bible-bashing duo from Sacrilegious Discourse, and we need your help.
That's right, folks. We're raising funds for some heavenly equipment and a studio that doesn't sound like it's in the depths of hell.
Our current setup, let's just say it's more apocalypse than audiophile.
So if you want to hear us dissect the Bible without the background noise of demonic squirrels, chip in a few bucks.
We're aiming for $5,000 to upgrade our audio and build a studio worthy of blasphemous banter.
Donate today and help us spread the good word of atheism.
You can find a link right on our homepage, sacrilegiousdiscourse.com. Every dollar counts.
Even if it's from your collection plate. Husband!
Wife!
Guess what we're doing today?
Well, we are in the midst of sort of finishing up the extra episodes on
Habakkuk.
That's right. And so today, what are we getting into?
Well, it was only 3 chapters long, so it's the Q&A as well as the wrap-up of the whole fucking book.
Got it. Okay.
So,
yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
Short book, short wrap-up.
It gets its own thing.
Yeah, we just mixed it all in.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, all right. And we do want to apologize. Been gone for a few days, so we're trying to get back into the swing of things again.
Still again forever.
Yeah, still again forever. But we are, you ready to get into this?
Sure as fuck am.
All right, let's do it.
Okie dokie. And here's to you, Habakkuk. We are gonna wrap up you.
I thought we discussed not doing that.
Woo, woo, woo. I had to.
You had to.
Because God rest you, please.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
So Habakkuk is unique.
Is he?
He is.
Okay.
In that he does not speak to men under God's commission as do the other prophets, but he speaks about his people and their enemies, the Chaldeans, to God.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
I was like, oh, damn, you're right.
Yeah.
I failed to notice that, but it's so true. Once it was pointed out, I was like, oh, yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah, he's not preaching.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's interesting, right?
It is, yeah.
Which
makes
kind of
makes it a little less likely that he was an actual prophet.
Yeah.
Because most of them that were maybe prophets were speaking to groups
of people who
right?
would remember it.
Yeah. So that is weird.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever you say, bro.
Yeah.
So chapter 1 was about the prophet's problem, right? And he's like, what the fuck?
Right. He was questioning God and, all the things.
Why are things bad? This kind of sucks and I don't get it, dude.
Right.
Right? So verse 1 says, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet. And then it says, on Shigionoth.
Okay.
And we were like, the fuck is that, a city or something?
Right.
And no, it's not.
Okay.
It turns out the word Shigayon, which is what that word comes from, comes from Shiga, which means to wander. It's a wandering song.
Okay.
So this is a song that he's singing as he goes.
In chapter 1?
In chapter 1, the whole book. Because what I just read you, verse 1, remember, would be the super text or the super, like the above, like what this is called, right?
Right.
This whole book.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a wandering song.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that the whole thing's a wandering song, but then we have a separate song.
Which is an actual psalm in the song.
Right. So that makes it seem even more likely that was written somewhere else.
Exactly. So the first problem was, how long, O Lord? Right?
Yeah.
And he does ask that, which I just think is funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So verse 6 says, I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own.
Right.
And so what that's about is when the Babylonians, or in this case, the Chaldeans, eventually came against Judah, they came as, quote unquote, sent by the Lord, right? And it wasn't that they themselves did not want to come and that God made them, but God allowed their sinful desire to conquer Judah. He allowed that desire to come to fruition.
I see.
Okay. And if God had not allowed them to do it, they never could have conquered Judah, according to apologists. And they could never have exiled God's people from the promised land.
I guess we'll never know. We can't go back and have him say, I'm not going to allow it.
Yeah, so how do you argue that?
It's real convenient.
It's very... it was meant to be-ish, and
revisionist history much, there's people talking.
No, it's not revisionist. It's giving a reason for exactly what happened, but telling you why. That's not revisioning.
Revisioning the why. Like if it had happened a different way, it would have been a different story, right?
Yeah, but they're not revisioning what happened.
No, I know.
They're just saying, yeah, but there was a reason why it happened.
Right, but it's the same idea as revisionist history. It's the same realm.
It's revisionist adjacent.
Right.
I will allow it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then moving on to chapter 2, that's really all I want to say about chapter 1.
Okay. Yeah.
About chapter 2, that's the one where God justifies his judgment. He's like, don't worry.
I got this.
I got this.
Right.
I got a plan.
Yeah.
So verse 1 says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. And that's Habakkuk is saying that. Okay. Yeah. He's like, I'm just going to stand here and watch. Sure. I will look to see what God will say to me and what answer I am to give to this complaint.
Right.
So our interpretation differs vastly from other interpretations which say, actually, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts, and I will look to see what he will say to me and what to answer when I am rebuked. The other translations indicate that he expected God to correct him.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm like, okay, that changes the entire meaning of that verse, really.
Right.
Because from this, we see that Habakkuk didn't ask God this question because he thought God was wrong and had to explain himself. He asked it because he knew that he was wrong and wanted to understand better.
Got it. It was for clarification purposes.
Yeah. This is what it looks like to me, bro.
But I can't possibly be right about it.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong. Yeah, right. And God is perfect, right? Whereas our interpretation is like, I don't get it. I'm just going to stand here and watch and see.
Yeah.
And that's different.
No, it is. It's more like that interpretation that you're talking about that we didn't get is more in line with the continuing the God is everything type mentality, right?
Yes, it makes more sense. It's more likely that was the intention given the rest of the book.
It does, because the way we had read it, it felt more in line with some of the early prophets like Moses and stuff, where they did actually have the goal to question some of God's actions. And back then we're like, oh, damn. Right. That's brave.
Like, I think Job was what we compared him to in the questioning.
Sure. But Moses questioned him too. And there was some other, I can't remember exactly who all questioned God, but there have been a few moments early on in the Bible where we were like, wow, that was, okay. Yeah. But this apparently wasn't one of them.
Except for...
Depending on which translation you're reading.
Right. I mean, the way that the translation we read made it sound like he was, but the actual translations otherwise seem to indicate, no, it really was right in line with them.
Well, but you could also look at that as a little bit of revisionist history, right? Because people could be like, well, we want him to be more godly. Yeah. So they might have changed it in order to make him sound more in line with what God wants, That is true. I'm not here to say which interpretation is better. I know that we read a watered down version to make it easier to read. So we don't always get all of the meaning. Sure. Which is why it's sometimes interesting to read the apologists, because they have all of these different perspectives that I'm like, how the fuck did you get that? And then I go and read a different interpretation and I'm like, oh,
that's not the same.
Right. Well, and it's important, I think, to know all the different sides of this because people are often going to be like, well, you just didn't understand the allegory. You didn't understand the, metaphor or the whatever, the thing that's...
You came to it with an agenda.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to, this is why I like our Q&As because we get to dive back into it and be like, okay, what actually do people think about this? What have they said about this?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
And I don't always agree with them, and I very rarely agree with the apologists, but, at least we know what other ways it might be interpreted.
And what other arguments might be presented. Like, you can't even be prepared for a conversation if you don't even know what might be said or thrown at you.
Yeah. As a side note, generally speaking, when you have an argument online with somebody about the Bible, they don't know what they're arguing. No. So it's impossible to have that argument anyway.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So going to verse 19, it reads, "Woe to him who says to wood, 'Come to life,' or to lifeless stone, 'Wake up.' Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There is no breath in it."
The reference to the idols.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a question about it, but we had talked about how the idols of the Israelites were just the same as the idols of anybody else, except that the other people actually believed that God resided in their idols.
Yeah.
Whereas the Israelites maybe sometimes didn't always, but I think it really depends on...
Well, I think that they didn't have idols per se because they didn't have things that they kept in their house that were symbols of their God, right? That they believed embodied their God. But they did have temples that they went to that they believed housed their God. And they believed that there were places...
The ark housed their God.
Right. And so they believed that there were places they could go that their God existed more, right? Which is the same general concept as idols.
Right.
It's just placed differently. It's a different way to look at it. It's a different way to...
Instead of a thing you put in your back pocket, you have to go to the place where your back pocket is.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, that's really the only difference.
Yeah.
And it's, for a while, their fucking tent that they carried around was a goddamn house for their God. And then they built a temple, like an actual temple. So, I mean, it's just... It's the same thing.
It really is.
They carried around that fucking ark until they lost it.
If you look at Christians today, they get really bent out of shape about their crosses and their Bibles.
Yeah.
They very much treat them as idols.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's just the Protestants. If you get into the Catholics,
they actually have idols.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah, no, I find that very interesting. I cannot understand Catholicism for the life of me.
I can't either.
It's some mixture of Christianity and then its own thing, right?
Yeah.
But
they took all the pageantry of Judaism and made it pretty with paganism.
Right, but they have literal people have the St. Christopher thing in their car to protect them from getting into wrecks and stuff because he's the saint of travel or something like that,
of safe
right?
travel, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's all these little idolistic things that they have in their religion,
Absolutely.
like the statues of Mary and whatever, and
their rosaries.
Yeah, and it's just, but they in the Bible they had those things with the pomegranates and whatever, and
Thummim and the
the Thummim and the Thummim and the whatever the hell it was, yeah.
But the rosaries are like worry beads.
Sure.
You hold them in your hand and you're, counting off your Hail Marys and whatnot.
Right. And the amount of times that you see a cross out there, it's absurd, right?
Whether Jesus is on it or not.
Right, but people hold them and kiss them like they have some sort of power, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's completely contradictory to what you read in the Bible.
Right. Which is funny to me because Catholics are supposed to be the earliest form of when they're the early Christians, right? When the Christians broke from Judaism, right? That's what they were. They were Catholic.
But they also were going to be the most conforming to the pagan religions because they were trying to adopt a little bit of both to get everybody on board.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Catholicism. I do that every time. Catholicism is just a mix of the pageantry of Judaism with the pagan shit that was going on at the time. And then the Protestants just took it to the next logical step, which was fuck both those things.
Sure.
And Jesus is the way.
Right. But there is still some paganism.
There's a lot, but it had been so long that they forgot.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And you could not convince them.
Right.
They think that like all of their God shit and their Easter stuff and they think all of that actually came before the pagans.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, not people that are studied this,
sure.
But yes, the general Christian out there does.
They will tell you, study it out. And I'm like, okay, bitch, you mean read only your sources, which are trash.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I actually read books that have words in them and that mean things.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, the idolater is one who treated inanimate objects as if they had life and intelligence.
Right.
And that just goes to what we were saying.
Yeah.
So chapter 3, moving right along here, okay? Verse 1 reads, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on Shiganath. Yeah.
Okay.
So it says it again, right? The psalm is introduced by what appears to be the name of the tune to which it was sung or what may be a literary or musical term.
Okay.
So, but remember before I was saying it's a wandering song. So, it
so we don't actually know.
No.
We're taking best guesses here.
Yeah. And also, let's keep in mind, too, that I will read where there are some of these inserted. Our translation did not have Salah. Remember the Salahs?
Right.
There are 3 of those in chapter 3, the actual psalm.
Interesting.
That were not included in our interpretation, which kind of makes it seem like I think maybe this interpretation is more correct, that Shigayanath means a literary or musical term, because I don't know if you recall, but the Salah meant most likely, again, we're guessing, but it meant probably a pause.
Yeah, or a song,
a break,
type deal,
a solid break,
or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
to reflect or, get back on rhythm or what the fuck ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I found that very interesting.
It was like a musical or poetic notation, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see. We are moving on to the power of God on behalf of his people, blah, 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 right?
Sure.
So God's judgment is pictured in a number of illustrations in this chapter.
Okay.
Okay. Some of which appear to be taken from the story of Israel's escape from Egypt and their journey to Canaan under Moses.
Okay.
And we kind of thought that that's what they might be talking about, but we weren't sure. And so we were on the right path. Yes, that is exactly what they are talking about in this song.
Okay. Right.
And so the judgment is like a thunderstorm that is seen approaching over the tops of the southern mountains. And that's verses 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Like a plague from which no one escapes. That's chapter 5.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, verse 5.
Right.
Like an earthquake that terrorizes the nations and shakes the mountains. And that's verse 6.
Okay.
And like a desert wind that blows down the Arabs' tents. And that's verse 7. Mm-hmm. Like the overthrow of enemies in battle, whether by armies or by the spectacular invention of the forces of nature. That's verses 8 and 9.
Okay.
Like a flood that sweeps everything away. And that's verse 10.
Okay.
Like an eclipse of the sun, which I will get into in a minute,
right.
That leaves the earth in darkness. That's verse 11. And like the triumph of a warrior who kills his enemies and saves his people. And that's verses 12 through 15. Okay. And so I just thought it was important to reiterate, we were actually right.
Yeah.
Like, that is exactly what they were talking about. So verse 3 reads, God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran, Salah.
Okay.
That's our first Salah, okay?
Yeah, did you look into Teman and all that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right.
Teman was the capital of a province in Idumea to the south of the land of Canaan.
Okay.
And Paran was a city which gave its name to a province in Arabia Petraea.
I actually remember talking about Paran. I think they were wedged in like some sort of that was where they filmed the Indiana Jones movie. It was like those cavernous places and stuff like that, I believe. Yeah. We talked about it a while back.
Yeah, we did. We did.
But it was like it held out a lot longer than other places when there was something. There was some battle happening and they were able to hold out longer.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wow, good memory, you. So verse 7 reads, I saw the tents of Cushan in distress, the dwellings of Midian in anguish. Jesus, couldn't get that out. Cush is Arabia. Okay, so when he says of Cushan in distress, he's talking about Cush, which is in Arabia.
Got it.
Okay, verse 9 reads, you uncovered your bow, you called for many arrows. Salah, you split the earth with rivers. Okay. Yeah, and I only read that so that we can get the Salah in it this time.
Sure.
Okay. Now this one's really interesting. Verse 11. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. So what this is referring to is the prayer of Joshua when he fought against the Amorites. And let me read to you Joshua chapter 10, verses 11, 12, and 13. Okay. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth Horon to Azekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them, and more of them died from the hail than were killed by the swords of the Israelites. On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Aijalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies, as it is written in the book of Jashar. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day.
Yeah, we gave them a lot of shit for that at the time when we read that.
And it was probably a eclipse or something that happened. Like, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I did double check to make sure this wasn't just an apologist trying to make this be true, that the Habakkuk verse was referring to the verses in Joshua when it said... in Habakkuk, sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows. That is what he's talking about.
Okay.
So that is the same event that he's talking about.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Verse 12 reads, in wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. This refers to the conquest of Canaan, where God is represented as going at the head of his people as general in chief, and leading them on from conquest to conquest.
Back earlier on in the Bible. So this is all kind of referencing stuff early on.
Early on, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And verse 13 again was, you came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. Salah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then verse 14 reads, with his own spear, you pierced his head when his warriors stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were in hiding. This is referring to Pharaoh and his generals way back in Egypt times.
All right.
The troops of Pharaoh, in their confusion, fell foul of each other, and with their staves or weapons, they slew one another. And Pharaoh was drowned with his army in the Red Sea.
This seems very not in place with what we were talking about in that chapter.
Yeah.
Like we're referencing all stuff from the
Pentateuch, the Torah.
Yeah. And so it just doesn't seem like it fits at the end of Habakkuk.
Right.
So I don't really know how to take that.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a reveling in God's past accomplishments, right?
Yes, that is exactly what chapter 3 is. Habakkuk is chapter 1. Habakkuk is questioning God.
Right.
And then at the beginning of chapter 2, he's saying, but I'm sure I'm just an asshole schmuck who doesn't get it. So please go on.
But he's going to sit there and wait and watch for it. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. However long it takes.
Right.
Okay. And then God says, don't worry, I got this.
But then to show his loyalty,
and then,
chapter 3.
No,
okay.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah. God says, don't worry, I got this. Here's my plan.
Yeah.
And then don't forget, Habakkuk then says, hold on, but why are you using people that are worse than us against us? That's stupid, bro.
Yeah.
And then God's like, I'm using them as a tool. They were going to come anyway. I could stop them, but I'm allowing it.
Right.
And so then, even though this is the important part of Habakkuk, if you are a believer. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you are an apologist.
Sure.
Even though all of that sucks, right?
Yeah.
And even though it sounds like a bad plan, and even though There's still bad things happening. And that was actually Habakkuk's original question.
Right.
Even though all of that, he starts chapter 3 singing, I don't get it, but I trust in you nonetheless.
Because of your past accomplishments.
Because of your
past glories and your past whatevers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I will now sing them out and list them.
Right, but that makes it even more interesting that many scholars think that was written well after the fact, right?
By somebody else at the very least.
Because ultimately, Habakkuk at its core, without that addition, is more of a questioning of God's ability to, and why are you doing this, and why are you choosing to do it this way?
Right.
Right? Without any real singing of any praises.
It's almost like, remember Job, the whole way through, Job was questioning, and then at the very end, we were like, this doesn't fucking make sense. All of a sudden, Job is like, and happily ever after.
Right. Tossed
and then we
shoulder.
Found out that probably somebody had edited the end, right?
Yeah.
This is basically Job 2.0, right? Except it's not happening to him personally. He's seeing how bad everything is around him.
Right. No, I mean, it's almost like the Bible, when it was originally written, was too real.
It acknowledged the flaws of the people and of God.
And so an editor later on was like, no, we need this to be fluffier. So
we cannot abide.
Fluff some God love in there.
We cannot abide an imperfect God. Because that actually, like, they understood, the rewriters, the editors, they understood the imperfection of God goes against everything that a God should be.
But you know what? I actually would prefer the image of an imperfect God over a perfect God.
Yes.
One that always gets everything right doesn't seem like one that is going to be able to grow it at all. Right. And if we're talking about Christianity eventually, right, we're moving into the New Testament.
Sure.
So we're talking about a God that claims that he grew and he decided to do this for humanity because he wanted us to not have to suffer anymore. So he's going to let his son die for our sins. Right.
I think your wording is questionable because apologists would claim that God never changed. He didn't grow.
Okay.
They claim that this was his plan all along.
Well, his plan sucked.
I mean, tell Habakkuk about it. But he agrees with you.
But there's a lot of just layman Christians out there that see it as a growth of their God, right? Their God grew from something that killed people all the time to now a forgiving God, right? That's kind of a general concept that exists out in the world.
Is it?
Sometimes. For some people,
that's not what I've run into. So
okay.
I'm going to bow to your experience.
Well, that's how I kind of viewed it, and that's how I've heard some people reference it as.
Okay.
So maybe I'm wrong in that, and I'm not talking about people that study the Bible. I'm talking about people that just have a general understanding.
No, I was just going to say another reason that I should bow to your knowledge is because you actually interact negatively or positively. I'll leave that up to the listener to determine.
With
malice.
With people, with certain people online.
You actually interact with Christians way more often than I do.
Yeah.
In an argumentative context on Twitter.
I do. I try not to, but I do.
Right.
And
so you're going to see an entirely different data set than I would.
Right.
Now, I will say your entire pool that you're pulling from is of the radicals. And I don't...
Oh, it really is.
I don't know that necessarily...
It's not the best place to base opinions on.
Yeah, so I don't know that you could say, well, I mean, it's commonly believed out there.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I would also say growing up in a small town, that was kind of my take on what people thought too.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I'm not just basing it on that. But... I don't really remember where I was going with all that. I just was...
a God that changes and grows.
Yeah, but I still don't remember where I was going with it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It was just... I don't feel like it was... I don't feel like it's correct with regard to how this... Like, if you felt that way, you wouldn't need to make him be perfect. And that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the idea that he's not perfect because then it'll, like, if you're going to believe in this God, it allows him to make that transition, right? But if he's perfect, then what the fuck was he doing?
I think that's the entire problem with Christianity is they want it both ways. I mean, you could say that about any number of things about Christianity, but they want him to be absolutely perfect and to have always known what was coming and everything to have been in his plan. Because, I mean, let's face it, that's what the word God means, right?
Sure.
Ever temporal, like always present, always there, ever knowledgeable, the whole thing. So they need to fix it to where that's the truth. But at the same time, if he did change and grow, you know, he used to be this way and now he's not. And the Bible itself says that he repented of having made humans in the first place. And that's why he fucking flooded them.
Right.
You know,
right.
He's like, oh, I fucked up with these guys.
Yeah.
Or like the Tower of Babel. Oh shit, I fucked up with this. I'm gonna knock that shit down and scatter the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, he admits that he's flawed, but Christians need him to be perfect so they can't handle that.
Right.
And so, like, way back when, a group of them tried to fix what they could, but they didn't do a good enough job for people like me and you reading it.
I think, honestly, that's what I like about Judaism, modern Judaism, a lot more than Christianity currently, because Judaism seems to allow for the God to be flawed. Mm-hmm. You know?
And
it's okay that the God is flawed.
And they like questioning and learning and talking about what can we take from this, and what does that mean, and how does that change the meaning of the stories and the words, and I mean, just in general, you know. Like I'm not there. There are definitely some like crazy Jewish sects out there as well. I mean,
just as there's crazy Christian sects.
Yeah, I was going to say there's radicals in every religion,
right? So I mean, I don't want to say that all of them are perfect for this, that, or the other, but like. I just like that idea.
Let's not even start on Zionism, right?
Right. But I like the idea of flaws better than not.
Yeah.
If I was gonna believe in a God, I'd like the idea of flaws better than not.
Okay.
Because it's relatable. And
see, I think that I disagree with that, because I think that defeats the purpose of a God. A God is supposed to be perfect. How do you have a God that's not perfect?
But if we were built in the image of God, right, then it makes you allow yourself to put yourself in a flawed God's shoes, right? Like, okay, I was built in your image. But flawed God,
to me, is what is that word? Like, military intelligence is two words that don't go together.
Right,
I forgot what that term is. Idiot something. Anyway, two words that don't go together.
Yeah. But I guess I've always kind of tried to, in my mind, find the perfect pitch for what a good version of Christianity might be, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, if I could just step outside of the Bible and say, okay, this God created us in his image, and he is flawed, and he's making a journey to become a better person, much like I, as a human, am making a journey to become a better person.
That sounds more like spiritualism.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Which, I mean, that's more my speed, honestly.
No. I'm that's what I'm saying, though, is that the exactness of Christianity and how people try to get it so exact, to me, is wrong.
Okay.
Like, if you want to go about this in any certain way, the way you would want to go about it is in a generalized acceptance of there's a God, and this is how I feel about it, and this is what the purpose of this stuff is.
So we agree in concept, and it's the choice of words that we're actually having a problem with. Okay. Because the term God does not apply to what you're saying. What you're talking about is an all-powerful being that...
Sure. Isn't that what God is?
Well, I think that it depends on how you define the word God, but that's an entirely different conversation. Okay. Like, somebody from like the Middle Ages might think that an airplane pilot is a god.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So, an advanced higher power that sometimes has some things they can do, some magic or some science we don't yet understand, right?
Sure.
But that is not a god to me. That is like my understanding of God is perfection.
Got it.
So it's just the wrong vocabulary I think Christians that want it both ways are using.
Sure. I guess my point is that I feel like that if people want to believe in God, as opposed to using the Bible as a reference, they need to stop.
I think we both agree on that.
It's the most imperfect version of a God I think I could imagine.
Yeah.
It's not correct. It's wrong. It's bad.
Completely wrong and bad.
Yeah. And there's so many flaws with it.
so many. It condones racism, slavery, sexual discrimination, rape, harm to children, murder.
Well, and it's so obviously written by humans that tried to manipulate the sayings.
I'm sorry. I need to be a little more specific. It's so obviously written by men.
Well, yeah.
Not just humans.
Right.
Men.
Yes.
Who had... Go on.
No, yeah. That just... They altered stories even. I mean, like there's no consistency to it. They
had their own agenda. They had their own ideas, their own politics of the time.
It's very apparent in reading it that is how it was going.
Even to two not very knowledgeable or scholastically inclined people.
Even with that, we get it wrong all the time.
Oh yeah,
but
totally.
It's still even with just a base gloss over of the Bible, it's still very apparent.
Right. So. Right.
Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough here.
Sure.
Do you have anything else to add about Habakkuk?
I didn't love it.
No, I didn't either.
I didn't hate it as bad as some. Maybe I
guess.
Kind of... I feel kind of ennui about it at this point.
We're kind of numb to the Old Testament, I think, at this point. We're like so ready to move on to the New Testament.
We're so close to the end. It's kind of like when you have to pee really bad and then like it gets worse the closer you get to the toilet for no reason.
Right.
And then like by the time you get to the toilet, you almost cannot get your business to the pot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never
Which
a good
makes
thing.
no fucking sense, right? Like, why do I have to pee more the closer I get? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's just the anticipation of being done.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there.
We're almost there. I can almost pee. Whew.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the wrap up for Habakkuk, which means that hopefully we'll be back tomorrow with...
You're always wrong, but you are always wrong in this case, too, because this will come out Monday morning, and the next one will be oh, yeah, we'll have one come out Tuesday morning.
So I'm not...
I was wrong. I was wrong. Yeah, no,
so
you're
anyway,
right.
It's the Contradictions episode, which will be out
Tuesday morning.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Sorry. Nothing. Don't listen to me.
And then keep it, as wife just said, we'll be having our Discord on Tuesday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern. So you can always go, there's a link right on our main webpage, sacrilegiousdiscourse.com. Head over there, hit the join button, sign up for Discord. It's a great time, especially if you're there for the live. So come join us for that. You won't regret it.
Yep. And that's just a bonus episode, open to everybody.
Yeah, so, even if it's a Patreon only. You get to hear it there, even if you're not a patron.
Right,
so,
but this one will be not a patron only episode.
Right, correct. So, well, you get to hear it early at the very least.
Yes.
And you get to hear some other talking from us, too.
Well, yeah. And you get to chat with all of our fun people in that crowd.
Yes,
which are
there are quite a few. It's really great.
They're so loving and kind and gracious with our stupidity. Honestly, I love the people in that group.
I do, too.
They're my, like, second fam.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for today, so we will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep. We have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.